authority meeting actually into a workshop meeting. Discussing rates and charges.
We just,
And, sorry, Paris, you might explain why we have to do this.
no, we don't have to do it. I just, we haven't done it in a long time, and so let's.
I'm on. Am I
call-
on now?
Yeah.
Let me see.
We do a roll call?
Yeah, go ahead. I gotta find my agenda.
Mr. Leskovich?
Present.
Mr. Swellen?
Present.
Mr. Hackett?
Here.
Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Parrish?
Here.
Mr. Thornberry?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, any citizen input related to the workshop? I guess we can't consider staff
Well,
citizens,
we'll
can
all
we?
talk as we move forward if we need to.
Okay,
So, rates and charges, we update this yearly. The board generally looks at it sometime after the budget's approved, and this is all included in the budget. We're looking, because of the tenant, I mean, this is really coming from the tenant talks that Ray has been doing, and I thank Ray for doing that, because I don't have the
temperament.
temperament or personality to do these things. I take everything very personally, so Ray's great at it, but he's come back from those and said, here are some issues, here's a solution, here's what they're telling us. So we've looked at everything, and we want to go over some stuff today, and I'll tell you some of the reasons for these things. The first slide is fuel. We are the cheapest of the major airports in the area, and when I say major GA airports, you could probably find cheaper fuel in Arcadia. I can't testify for the age of it, but if you look at Pagefield, if you look at Naples, you look at Venice, Sarasota, we tend to be on the lower end. And one of the things we're trying to do specifically with fuel is one of the concerns we're hearing from tenants is turnover in the FBO. And I went through and I looked at turnover in the FBO, and unfortunately it has been, on average, almost 100% turnover annually. Now that doesn't mean that there's all new people. We have some very consistent staff that's been there a long time, but between our seasonal staff, our part-time staff, and some of it, even full-time staff, we have had a lot of turnover. You know, right now, people are leaving great jobs with the government for good jobs with McDonald's, because McDonald's is paying $18 an hour to start, and we're paying $15 an hour to start, or $13 an hour to start. We have better retirement, we have better health care, but to a 25-year-old, that's not important. You gotta, as Ray tells me, you can't pay your rent with health care. And so we're looking at increasing some of these so that we can give some pay increases, and we've looked at, we're doing a salary study right now. We have done some incremental pay increases over the last few years just to keep staff here when we were losing a lot of staff, and that has helped, but this is another way to implement and increase some staff. So I'll go through right now. You can see our current rate and our proposed rate. Full service jet, 99% itinerants would be paying that. Self-serve avgas, it's not a big increase. Honestly, that is going to pay for the additional insurance for the second tank and the additional maintenance and filters and things that are required, because we did put in a second self-serve last year. Full service avgas, again, that is itinerants. The full service tenants, which we didn't give the tenants a discount before, they paid the full rate. We're going to increase that by 10 cents And so that would be our T-hangar tenants and the other tenants on the airport. Vessel, that's what, we have a few tenants that put our gas into their tanks and then take it to fill. Mostly that's the sheriff right now. And then the DLA contract, the Defense Logistics, something we can't change, and everything else pretty much stays the same. So we're trying to put the burden on the itinerant traffic. I don't think this is going to change the itinerant traffic because they're coming here for the reasons that they come here. But this does give us, about $650,000 that we could put towards the FBO staff, to try and supplement some of the pay in that area. Obviously, this is just a workshop. These numbers aren't final. We're going to start budget. We've already started budget, but we're going to start putting the budget numbers together. So it's, during the budget workshop, you'll see how these have affected our budget, and at that point you can make comments and then make changes at the budget hearings.
A question not on the numbers, but we offer a top-off Tuesday. And help me understand, I think I understand why you do it. Tuesdays historically have been slow fueling days.
Yeah.
So the question's been, you guys know I get my ears bent out here all the time. Why don't we do it every Tuesday? I'm just asking.
Honestly, we don't have the staff to do it every Tuesday, and it's just been one of those things where we implemented that probably 6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years ago, and we actually bring a person in to just do top-off Tuesdays.
Yeah, and what that is for the board members, that's where the truck will come to the guy doesn't have to take his airplane to the self-fueling stand.
Self-serve, they get self-serve price off the truck.
The truck comes to the hangar.
And fills you up at self-serve
At
pricing.
We
self-service price.
we also bring some refreshments around and things like that. It's more of a, I would say, more goodwill for the tenants, just to give that as a
Okay, just
appreciation
curious.
for being here.
Is it highly used? I mean,
Yep,
are they-
Top-off Tuesday is pretty
Pretty busy.
So
Pretty popular,
we
yes.
do times that were in the 200s, 600s through the fence.
through the fence, yeah.
And it's a popular
Yeah, if you
program.
guys are bringing somebody in special just to handle.
Yeah.
Also, I would like to point out that the Avgas tenant that was new and added, that was a suggestion directly from the tenant talks meetings. So that allows us to give our base tenants still a low price on fuel and not place a higher burden on them.
Yeah, and really, if the guy is managing his airplane and flying and all that, you fuel on top-off Tuesday.
So we did, and let me see, I've written stuff everywhere. So we looked at fuel sales, avgas sales specifically, and honestly, T-hangar tenants are the smallest section of our fuel sales. Of the 250 plus T-hangars, I think it was $11,000 a month. That was averaged over 7 months, where the other fuel sales, the flight schools, were over $100,000 in that same period. So not a lot of fuel sales come from the T-hangars, but they are a big part of the aviation community, and that's why we have the programs like Top-Off Tuesdays. So these are our fuel projections and fuel markups. Eric, our new FBO, what is your official title? General Manager, Grand Poobah of the FBO. He comes from the FBO world, and he was instrumental in putting this together, making us not only competitive with our neighbors, but also making sure that he can have his staff supported. We're trying to make the FBO, owning an FBO is generally in most airports is not an airport function. The airport has FBOs on the airport that handle the fueling. Airports may own the tanks, they may own the facilities, but they don't do the fueling. So there are a few airports in Florida that do it, us, Naples, Page, a lot in Southwest Florida. And it allows us to be a monopoly, and some people like that, some people don't. So we don't want to take advantage of our monopoly, and that's the reason we do surveys. But we also want to be consistent with our fuel. We have a very good fuel vendor, we have very good prices, and I think we can, continue with this program and put a little bit more money into the FBO.
And it's important to understand that if you're in the fuel business, you're in the fuel business. But if you get out of the fuel business, you can't. That's it. You're opening up to free, competition and all that kind of stuff. So as a revenue source, it's a good revenue source. It doesn't pay all the bills.
It's a good revenue source. It's
Provides the services. Yeah.
It allows us to provide services at a fixed cost, not there's not two FBOs out there that are providing different services. I struggle with owning an FBO. The amount of energy and effort staff puts into being the fueler on the airport and running that facility and keeping 500 tenants happy. Generally, T-Hangar tenants would be a tenant of the FBO. And then I could just say, go talk to George over there. We can't do that. And so, there is some issue. We talked a few years ago about putting it out for a management contract and letting a Sheltair come in here and manage the FBO. We would still own it, but they would manage it. Sebring did that. It was a failure there. Talked to General Counsel about selling the FBO at one point and what that would look like. We ultimately decided that wouldn't be a good thing for the airport, so we never took it past the consideration stages. But it's a lot of work, and what you're going to see as we move forward is all FBO related. It's all hangars and everything else. The land rates we're not going to talk about because those are set by appraisal. The FAA requires us to do an annual appraisal, set our land rates at 8 to 12% of that, so it's kind of fixed. Mm. These are the things we have control over because we own the FBO. So,
James, the current figures on here, and maybe I'm not following here, that's what the tenant currently pays?
So this is, for right now, full service jet is our cost.
It's our cost?
Yeah, plus $2.10.
That's profit.
Our cost plus 210.
Yeah.
So the $2.10 is passed on to
Whoever takes
The consumer.
the consumer.
Correct.
And we now want to propose taking it up to $3.10 on top of the normal gallon price.
Our cost plus $3.10.
So when was the last time the current prices, or when were what's currently going on now, when were those last implemented?
Last year.
Last year?
Last year, we updated this.
We look at them annually and try to bring them back annually so that we're only adjusting them once a year as far as our margin goes. The cost of the fuel to us is every Tuesday that changes. So we didn't do a first in, first out process where on Tuesday we changed the price based on what our cost was plus our margin.
So has
Just
our
like a gas
cost
station.
gone up to purchase?
Our
it?
cost goes up all over the place. It's just like
So it
at a gas
So
station.
it fluctuates
Just like
daily.
one day at
Correct.
a gas station,
But
you're
we're
$2.29
fixed
a gallon,
on the
next week it's
consumer
$2.75.
now. The
Correct.
number is fixed with the consumer at 210.
No,
Well, no,
margin,
it's
the margin.
our cost plus 210.
Our cost plus 210.
So the margin is what we're bringing back in as revenue.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the cost of the fuel is to us, the margin.
It's
we're
still
always gonna be
210.
$2.10 for every gallon. It doesn't matter how much we pay for the fuel, we're gonna get that amount.
Yeah, what's a gallon going for today, avgas?
$1.95?
No, no, not our car, the
No.
retail.
Oh, retail is 460. We're at 465.
Yeah, and 210 of that is, that's our margin, and that $4.60.
Right.
Now that, so it's just not all profit. We have to buy trucks, we have to man the trucks, we have to change filters, we have to run the FBO. I mean, all of the.
Pay employees.
Pay the employees, so I will tell you, 210 barely breaks even. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the FBO as a profit center, it is not a profitable profit center.
You're
And in
lucky.
our tenant talks, they're okay with these increases?
So tenant talks, they brought up the turnover at the FBO, the customer service at the FBO, and what they would like to see improved in that. The reason for our turnover has been the salaries there, mainly with part-timers. So the part-timers don't get the benefits that the full-timers do as far as the healthcare goes. So a lot of the full-timers you don't see turnover with, even though they're paid relatively the same hourly wage depending on how long they've been here. The benefits keep the full-timers here, the part-timers don't get that. And so in order to try to counter the turnover, we'd like to increase their wages. The way to do that is to create more revenue in order to be able to pay them all more.
But the fact is, the average tenant's not going to see an increase because we're adding the tenant discount.
Right,
Yeah.
the tenant discount, there's a 10-cent increase, which I would say over every year when we go through this, we're fluctuating anywhere from 10 to 15 cents up or down historically, depending on what our position is as far as having, wait lists and things like that. Years where we didn't have wait lists, we were trying to get more hangar tenants here, we would have lowered the margin to try to produce more volume business rather than higher margin.
So how many part-time do we have over there now?
So there's 33 total headcount. There's probably about a third of that is full-time, and the other two-thirds part-time.
Do we make a good profit with the flight schools over there?
So that depends on the flight school. Yes, for the flight schools, there's one in particular that takes full service off the truck. They don't allow their students to use the self-serve. So they're paying full serve off the truck price right now. Self-serve, they're obviously getting the biggest discount. So there's one of the bigger flight schools that all they do is self-serve. So it varies for them. The student is ultimately paying that cost as far as flight schools go, which again, that's gonna, I don't think they're gonna notice that big of a difference with the 10 cents that we're increasing for a tenant on avgas.
I will tell you that our self-serve fuel barely pays for the system, our margin on the self-serve.
And
That's
Eric
our
can,
current rate.
Yeah, even our new rate.
Barely.
Because we just added a second self-serve, so our insurance doubled, our filters doubled, we have multiple signage, we have to have communications going to them. So, I mean, there's a lot of fixed cost in owning those facilities, and at $1 a gallon over our cost of goods just barely covers the.
If I may, adding that on top of our costs, will bring us, if we bring it up to the 310, it will make us more competitive to the surrounding airports. I have a little spreadsheet here right now. That would bring us, if we bring it up to the 310 for our retail price, which not a lot of people pay retail. It gives us a chance to push for contract fuel. And if they sign in for a contract fuel, where they pay through Titan and pay us back, the margin is lower and the processing fees are eliminated. Because I believe last year we paid almost $90,000 in processing
So
fees.
let's go to the next slide real fast. I think it's on here.
Before you move on, an allied question with Steve is the process that basically when we get done, I assume this is going to be public information before we
Sure.
before we approve this thing, because there's no meeting next
Yeah,
month.
correct.
Well, there's no, this won't get approved until you guys approve the budget. So
Right,
this will be part of
so-
the budget.
But all this stuff will eventually get disseminated to the tenants, and, you know, if they got a problem with it, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
So it's, you know, it looks like it's really a big increase, but it isn't. And to put it, for instance, right now we're at $4.69 for a gallon of jet. It would bring it up to $5.69. But if you go down to Private Sky, they're at $7.15. They have a $4.55 in the wing rate. So we'll still be, you know, the least expensive place to go, but we're just trying to cover our costs. Rule of thumb was if you're charging 70 cents, if your in the wing rate is 70 cents, you're probably breaking even. You know, when it comes to wages, the cost of operating the equipment, the insurance on the equipment, you know, everything above. So we're just trying to bring it up without bringing it up too much in one fell swoop.
And honestly, that 70 cents is based on a private company that's not paying FRS rates, that's not paying our insurance. You know, we have, I won't say Cadillac policies, but we have very good insurance policies, but they cost about $2,000 a month per employee. So, you know, we've got to cover all of those costs that a Private Sky probably isn't giving that type of insurance to their employees. And we're still going to be cheaper, because Private Sky obviously has a profit motive more than we do. We're you know, as a government entity, of course, we want to cover our expenses, but we also want to, you know, try and not gouge anybody.
One of the other things that Eric pointed out when he first got here, coming from a competitor just north of us, he tried to get to where we were on our fuel prices and couldn't get anywhere near it when he was at a competitor. So bringing them up to where we're trying to, we're still by far going to be the cheapest around. And it's a blended rate. When we get into contract rates, you'll see not a lot of people pay full retail on, especially on jet. They have some type of contract rate. If they don't, we can get them signed up with Titan. It doesn't cost them anything, and then they get the Titan rate, which is a discount, or volume discount, which is on this slide. So if they're purchasing by volume per fuel up, they get a discount as well. So it's really a total blended rate that we have to look at. That's how we budget it for the year.
Yeah, and all this fueling information and pricing is available, as Sean knows, to the pilots. You know, that they'll shop fuel rates on where they're going to stop to pick up their fuel. So
More on the avgas side than the jet
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
The jets, I mean, and unfortunately or unfortunately, the jets are coming here because their client is bringing them here. And as jet traffic increases, you know, we added, how many fuel trucks did we add this year?
Well, we switched.
From 5,000 to 7,000?
Total, yeah, we switched 3 over to 7,500 gallon trucks from 5,000. We kept 2 for the air show, and we're adding a 3rd one for the air show. Those 2 will go away. So we increase the amount that we can pump off of one truck for more efficiency, less driving around the airfield.
We have an insurance cost related to those trucks.
Right.
We have to insure those individually. So we've got, I think, 10 or 12 trucks that we're insuring.
And as you all know, insurance costs have skyrocketed in the last few years. So, you know, I will tell you, prior to, Gary, I hope you're not listening, prior to me, we didn't really look at the profitability of the FBO. We just set fuel prices based on what everybody else was doing. But the fact of the matter is, every department that's not just an overhead department like maintenance needs to be profitable, and this is one of our profit centers. And I have tasked Ray and Eric with working out a way that the FBO is a profit center that it at least breaks even. And so when you start building all of the cost into that profit center, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. And you know, you're gonna see as we progress in here, some of the other areas where we're losing money, and you know, we need to work on, I don't think we can get it all back in 1 year, but, you know, we're gonna have to work on it over time.
My opinion is we shouldn't be losing money on anything, and we shouldn't be breaking even on anything.
In your slides, GSC, is that the government fueling contract? What do we do
No,
from
GSC
here?
is ground service equipment.
So,
So the air carriers right now, we have 2 tanks on the air carrier apron that diesel and MoGas.
okay.
So they fill up there, that's the
could you
margin
go
on
back
that
a
fuel.
slide?
And then my question was really related to what do we do on the military
So that's
fueling?
the defense
That's
logistics.
DLA, the
Okay.
Defense Logistics Agency, that
Yeah,
stays the
I
same.
can't remember all that stuff,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are we still getting a lot of traffic from them?
It's on and off, it depends on the time of year. There's a few months out of the year where the Navy trainers are doing a lot of cross-country, so we'll see those a couple months out of the year. The air show, obviously, they're gonna operate off the DLA contract as well. And then we have some random people from McDill that come down a couple times a week.
So it's not really a profit center, the DLA contract. It's more driving traffic through the FBO. And hopefully, when we have a restaurant in there, it will drive
That's what I'm saying.
people to the
What-
restaurant.
They're using the vending machine, I mean, what?
Unfortunately, we didn't even have enough traffic to keep our heated vending machine.
Now, those guys
So-
are generally coming here, taking a crew car into town and eating at a restaurant in town.
Yeah.
So if we had a airport subway or a restaurant in the building, would we accept breaking even or losing money on that? Or if there was a private contractor
Well,
that
that's-
built out Rosati's or a subway, is he gonna break even or lose money?
Well, the idea, obviously, is to make money, and the Rosati's pro forma that he gave us, he was making money. Now, it was also a delivery service, delivering pizza.
But my point is to me, there's no difference between that and fuel.
Correct.
You know, we're not there to, I mean, we want to serve the community, serve the GA,
So
but
I
it should be at least breaking even.
yeah,
at the
I've
very,
always,
very
I've
minimum.
always seen the restaurant as a break-even thing. It's more of a service, but yes, it should be a break-even service. It can't be a losing service. And honestly, the old restaurant at the terminal that used to serve general aviation, and it was in a very old building, but the cost of keeping the air conditioning running, and the swamp cooler that just sits over the grills, we barely broke even on that. And so that's why our new contract was it's a cost plus. You know, he pays a percentage of income plus a rent. So, you know, obviously, we have struggled with getting a full-time tenant in there. And as Mr. Hanson can probably attest, that is not something that's new. Airports, general aviation, restaurants struggle. Now, the one that rolls right in front of us is Ocala. They put a new terminal in, and they've had extreme success with their restaurant. We've just had bad timing. I mean, we had COVID when we first opened that. Then we had, when Rosati's backed out, we put it back out, and then we had 2 floods. And all of the local restaurateurs were trying to deal with that and didn't even bid. We do have a few looking at it. One in Venice is interested in opening, the one that runs a restaurant down there. Kaylee and I went and ate there the other day. They would be a great option, and he understands the airport market, but
I believe the existing restaurant that goes there, even though it's at the FBO, I think there'd be more traffic locally than there would be coming from with all the flight schools here, with all the development around. I think that's what would make it a profitable
yeah.
restaurant in the FBO. I think offering that to our tenants, to traffic coming in, is an extra thing to build it up, but I think the existing space around the airport could support it.
Yeah,
In addition to that, you've got you know, the RV parks now, you've got a lot of
Yes.
development going on in 17.
Yeah.
You know, even my office, I have to drive to Vermont Road to go to Subway, you know,
Yeah.
for a quick lunch.
Well, there,
You know,
yeah,
So it's like,
I mean, right around here, within 5
I would
miles.
come to lunch there, you know, on a weekly basis if there was something there. So I agree with you. I think getting somebody to put a business plan together that believes along the same lines is.
We are working
is the
on that,
idea,
trust me.
but, Yeah.
Any other comments on fuel margins? Obviously, there's no votes today, there's no decisions being made, but this is just, you know, what we're proposing as we work through the budget. Next slide is just, we're talking about our volume discounts that we already offer, kind of changing them up a little bit.
One other thing I'd like to add too, we did have a consultant look at these to make sure that we were not going too far one way or the other, and he agreed with the majority of our
Yeah,
of our
and
changes.
so these have been adjusted based on him. These were different 3 days ago. And we've been having a lot of meetings internally and listening to his input and have adjusted these numbers.
And a lot of them, and they're kind of updating it to be more.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, next slide. So this is our contract fuel that we talked about. This is if they have a Titan card. Previously, it was a Shell card. The great thing about it is we're not paying the 3% fee on the credit card. So that all of these numbers that you just saw previously drop 3% off that because we're paying that to American Express, Visa, and MasterCard. We don't on this one, so we make 3% more. We're just kind of changing those fees a little bit. Titan's going to yell at us, but you know, it's our contract, it's our fuel. Eric says that's fine. All right. Next slide. So we're going to implement or propose implementing a security fee for overnight stays. This is a one-time fee. If you park on the ramp, so if you park there for a day or a week or a month, you pay this once. Just to kind of cover the cost of we have 24-hour personnel there. They may not always be in the FBO, but they're on the airport. We have gates, we have cameras. This is a typical fee at most FBOs, and we're just proposing putting that in place. $5 on a single engine. I think about 80% of our traffic's going to be paying $5 or $10.
That's interesting. I never seen it called security fees. They used to be called ramp fees, weren't they? Overnight fees?
Well, we still have an
have that
overnight.
too.
Oh, we haven't got to that slide
Yeah,
yet.
so this is just a single fee. You pay it one time. So if you're there for a week, you pay $5. If you're there for a day, you pay $5.
And honestly, the cost of access control, CCTV, personnel gates, things like that,
Yeah, but the guy coming in at 150, he don't care.
So this has nothing to do with tie downs or?
No.
No,
So
like I
why,
said-
what difference does it make from a single engine then to a large jet? I mean, from
Well, if you're in a
your
large,
costs, our costs, if it's mostly gate access and things like that.
this is just industry standard. It's the way it's done.
The larger the aircraft, the more you pay for a service.
Yeah.
Even if it's the same service being provided to all aircraft, smaller aircraft like Commissioner Hanson said, 152, he's not going to pay $40, right? But the large jet,
One, they expect more. So,
So again, like single engine versus twin engine, but, I mean, does it really cost us double to provide that service? But, yeah, again, it's just trying to make it,
it's,
Makes
you know,
sense.
we're like I said, we're trying to make this more industry standard, trying to make it more.
Trying to
you know,
make the
what-
place pay.
I'm all on the fee, I'm just not,
I think it's trying to spread the cost.
yeah, go ahead.
It's becoming an industry standard. There's also some places charge facility fees, but we're also, if you will, we're protecting a larger investment. You know, a large jet costs millions of dollars more than a 152. So it's kind of justifying that we're keeping that aircraft safe
I
for
mean,
them.
the fact is, it's probably costing us closer to $20 per. We're giving the single engine a discount and instead of just $20
That's
across the
80% of
board.
your business is what you said. The single and twin engine is probably about 80% of what you're gonna be collecting. I still let my HOA hear about this. 4-bedroom versus 3-bedroom.
Now, that's a good idea.
I have the
Take
same,
that one back.
I have the same problem with property taxes.
But you know, all this kind of all rolls together when the previous discussion on trying to make this thing at least break even or like your thing should be making a profit.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
going to be tough.
and a lot of our competitors do charge these.
And how much do they charge? Are they at $5 because to me, if I own my own single engine plane, I'm not gonna squawk about
Yeah,
$10 or
they
$20
charge a lot
for
more.
a security fee.
Yeah, they'll charge a lot more.
Oh,
than-
you
than
would,
this.
trust me.
Well,
Sean? They would.
No, they're tenants. This is just transient traffic.
So if like single, twin, turboprop, single, turboprop, twin, if they all paid $20, they would really squawk at that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, see, he won't be able to vote on
$20
this
they can buy you
section.
lunch at Subway. Wow.
Interesting.
It does also give the staff some room if there's an issue to say, hey, you know what, we're sorry about the issue that you had, customer service wise. We'll waive
Waive
the
the
security
fee.
fee for you on this one, things like that.
It makes sense to me on the single engine, twin engine, just to do $10 across the board. I mean, it doesn't seem much and take the turboprop single up to 15. I mean, if that's where the bulk of, I mean, I had a car where I went in to get new tires and they're like, you're squawking about $300 a tire when you're driving this type of car. And I'm like, well, you're right. I can't squawk about it.
Noted.
But I'm not, but I'm not Mr. Swayland though,
All right.
I'm just glad we're charging something regardless.
Next slide. So this is just miscellaneous fees. The ones that are changing significantly is aircraft recovery, forklift fee. This is a new fee. We didn't really have any requests. We're doing training right now, trying to bring in a little more cargo traffic, light cargo traffic. We're having all of our staff at the FBO go through training. Aircraft recovery, this is something that when it happens, what was it, Memorial Day weekend, we had a single engine aircraft flip over on the intersection of 1533 and 422, shutting the airport down completely. We were unable to get a tow truck out here for 3 hours. There was a semi wreck on the interstate and all the tow truck companies were out there trying to recover that. So it was Ray, Brett, myself, Josh, and 2 other ops guys with a lull and straps recovering an aircraft. We didn't charge a penny for that. I think we should.
Well, you got what you paid for, right?
Yeah,
We were shut down, so
2
flights.
airplanes diverted to Sarasota.
Yeah,
because of
our
that, which is
Allegiant
a-
flights were landing in Sarasota. We couldn't have any incoming traffic for our GA. So, I mean, when these things happen, when the Gulfstream had a flat tire on 1533 and 422 was closed for construction, it was 3 hours that we spent recovering that. And to stop that, we have bought, what is those
Plane
skates?
skates.
The plane skates, $10,000, $35,000?
50,000 for the big one.
For the big one and 10,000 for the small one. We had to go to Naples and pick one up because we didn't have one. And the fact is, I don't think we've used the big one ever since then, but we have it. And
One time we have.
and so We'll never recover the $50,000 we spent on that with a $250 fee. But honestly, when your plane's flipped upside down, paying $250 is,
Well, but a diversion is about $10,000
Yeah.
Right.
an aircraft.
Yeah, so
you
car
guys are
towed for
losing.
$250?
so you would still pay the towing fee. This is the fee to the airport to have our staff out there.
Generally, we have prompt towing that comes out with their crane truck and will recover the aircraft if it's flipped over or off, if it's gone on an excursion off the runway into the safety area and it's in, soil, it's stuck, wheels broken, something along those lines. Prompt towing will come out with at least one, and it's usually their larger equipment where they can lift the aircraft.
So they're still paying that fee, but this pays for refilling the ruts. When we had a plane go off the end of 2-2,
Yep.
it probably took us 3 hours to take dirt up there, fill in the ruts that were caused, and we have to because we're out of compliance with the 139.
Safety area cannot have roads. And
Seems cheap still.
Huh?
That seems cheap.
I agree with you, but it's a new fee.
Right.
I mean, I think we'll look at it, but
It should probably be an hourly fee, change it to per hour.
That would make more
yeah,
sense
and
per
the
person.
prompt towing bill on something like that is $1,000 plus easily.
I mean, what is your salaries per hour?
Well, generally
plus,
it's not-
holiday weekend. and you came
generally it's
to
not the
airport?
C-suite
Free.
recovery.
Time and a half.
They're free
I was
on
off that day,
weekends.
so it didn't
I'm
cost
not
the airport
trying to,
anything.
We also, if we
Clearly,
do
we're
have to
not
shut
covering
the,
their costs on stuff like that.
if the airport does shut down and the aircraft does divert, I mean, we're losing out on other
Yeah.
revenues, like rental cars that we get revenue off of when somebody rents, because now they're probably gonna rent it at the airport they diverted to.
Yeah.
And then drive
Cancel the
back.
reservation here, so, there is other impacts to it.
Wouldn't that be covered under the insurance of the
Yes.
plane? Like,
Yeah.
so our
Generally.
fees would be,
If they have insurance.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of air attendants don't have that kind of insurance. When we started requiring insurance, there was an uproar, but we have to. When Venice had their fire in their hangar, the guy that started the fire didn't have any insurance, and there were 8 aircraft burnt. I was the engineer that had to fix the hangars. Those hangars are galvalumed walls. When the galvalume gets burnt in an aircraft fire, it becomes hazardous waste. Every bit of ash had to be 55-gallon drummed, hazardous facility. It was probably $1 million to recover it before we could rebuild it. And so we now require all our tenants to have a liability policy. But that often they don't have any insurance on their hull, so it's not, they don't have.
Yeah, if you keep a boat at a marina, in a boathouse, they require you to have insurance.
Yeah, now, I mean,
but if you're a visiting boat to the marina, transient, they don't ask for your insurance.
no.
And that's so if somebody was visiting our airport for the day, coming in for lunch at our non-restaurant, and they took out a bunch of runway lights, and they don't have insurance, and they don't have the private assets to cover it.
Generally, they only can take out 1 or 2, so. No, you're right, and we fix lights, Bo's right behind Ray and I after we pull the plane out of the grass, fixing the lights. That's just the cost of.
Those are $138 a piece, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned on insurance, we don't require them to have hull insurance. We require them to have liability insurance. So when somebody goes in, they slip on the oil that's on the floor, and they're going to sue us and the aircraft owner. So it's
Or they hit their head on the prop, or the aircraft owner.
so it's liability, not just. Somebody asked me that question.
But we do require liability insurance
Yeah.
now. And that's,
What if you have multiple airplanes in a hangar?
you have to have insurance.
Liability
Yeah,
insurance.
yeah.
But you don't have to have hull insurance on every airplane, do you?
No, we don't require hull insurance on any plane, so.
That's
How many incursions do we typically have?
So, if you're including flat tires, we probably have 1 a week. Sometime in season, obviously, it's a lot more than that. It seems like every weekend, we're dealing with some type of aircraft recovery. And some of them are minimal. I mean, we can get out there with a tow bar and just move the aircraft. We recently had one that was a tail wheel that came off a tail dragger, so that one was pretty quick and easy to move. But it still requires operations response, ARF response. You know, the FBO is in charge of towing, so they come out. There's a lot of staff time that goes into that, and the amount of time that runway is shut down.
Yeah, just the one that happened on Memorial Day leaked about 4 gallons of fuel, so we had fuel absorbent, then we had to bring a sweeper truck out. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it beyond recovering the aircraft.
Special inspection afterwards as well.
Special inspection of the runway. So this $250 is nowhere close to going to cover all the costs, but it's just a fee
Something.
that
Something.
maybe you try not to hit the brakes too hard to turn off on 15.
I mean, we
and
can
flip your plan.
adjust that to per hour if that's what the board is.
Oh, yeah, blame it on us.
Right.
I would be open to increasing it one way, shape, or form. I don't think
It
$250
just seemed very, very cheap.
is
Well,
a drop in the bucket.
I mean, we'll look at that.
Yep.
And
Yeah, make a note of it as you're developing the budget.
the other increases are minimal until you get down to lock replacement. We have never charged for that. We have T-hanger tenants that leave, don't give us their keys, so we have to go and call in a locksmith, change the keys, change the lock. Or if they lose their key, we have to replace their key, and we're just going to add a fee for that.
And that came from a new system that we implemented last year. We rekeyed all of the hangers to each hanger row has a master key. So that lock set is specific to that row of hangers. So we have a spare. When somebody loses a key, we can swap out that spare lock set and have new keys made for them.
Are you saying the buck knives don't work anymore?
I'm not, I have
As
no
well
comment.
as they
I have no
used to.
comment.
All right. Next slide. Not a lot here. We're removing the monthly, just doing a daily on our commercial carrier hard stands. These are planes that are sitting, not being used. These are not a hard stand over.
These aren't gate charges.
These aren't gate charges. These are if Allegiant brings in a plane for maintenance,
Like they got to change an engine out or something like that.
they're paying.
So what we do right now on that, to determine the fee right now, we have, we allow them one spare aircraft. That benefits us. If they have an aircraft go down, they can fill it with a spare. Anything over the one spare aircraft is what we charge, and we actually narrow it down by the hour. Ops goes through and watches CCTV. One of the thing in the consent agenda earlier will automate all of that through AeroCloud. The gate management software will automate all of that process to charge for hard stands above the one spare.
So there's, the only thing we're doing here is removing the monthly, just going to a daily. All right. Not a lot of changes here, changing our tug fee, lav cart. Honestly, that doesn't cover the cost of doing a lav.
Removal. Yeah.
But not a lot of changes on this slide. Next slide, please. All right.
How much of those services are we actually providing to Allegiant?
We don't do any,
We don't
this
do-
is on charters.
Just
and
on-
stuff,
This
yeah.
is, Allegiant's doing their
They do,
own.
we don't do any of that.
We did provide ground handling equipment they recently had a charter aircraft that we're taking all
Is your
charters
plane out
at the
here?
Air Center now that golf is open. Their charter aircraft came to the Air Center, we charged them the ground handling equipment
I get a lot
costs,
of-
but they had their personnel work with our ground handling equipment. So they paid the full rate at the Air Center for charter.
And who does Sunseekers?
So
I mean, not Sun
Sun
Country.
Country.
Sun Country does their own with our equipment, and they pay a
They
turn
pay
fee
it.
for
they
the
pay a turn
equipment.
fee.
So they pay a turn fee and an equipment fee.
That's the bundled cost at the bottom of that slide.
Yeah. All right, so this is the one I'm expecting to get beat up the most on. So let me just go through some pro forma data. 200 series or 600 series hangars, 601 through 605 were built in 2005. Average cost was about $42,000 a unit. And over the 20 years, the average rent has been $350 a month. The cost of ownership, if you include maintenance, insurance, management of the leases, replacing doors, replacing hydraulic pumps. We replace the doors about every 20 years, so we're about to start a big cycle of replacing doors, so huge expenses coming, is about $206 a month. So in the 20 years of ownership, we have made $84,000 per unit, and it has cost us $104,000 per unit. Our new ones that we just built were $133,000 a unit. We used our own money that was in the bank. We were making $433 a month on that $133 in interest. So the cost of the money, if you just want to pay us back over 20 years, is $800 a month. That doesn't include the $200 a month that is our overhead to own and operate those units over the 20-year period. So I'm trying to adjust our rates so that we're competitive, because we are the cheapest in the area, if you exclude Venice and Arcadia. And you got to understand, general aviation airports get 80% money for hangars. We don't. We can't. So they will be cheaper. That money is drying up and going away even for them. So I know Venice is looking at big increases. Page just built 60 hangars. I think 40 of them are about replacement and 20 new ones. Sarasota just opened up hangars, and we are by far the cheapest in the area. Naples is $1,000 a month for their new T hangars. So I'm trying to get us, I would like to, have one rate for hangars. Right now we have over half that are under another rate. Then we have about 40% paying all different rates, depending on when they came. So we're trying to, start fresh with a new rate that is at least covering all of our costs. I know this is not going to be popular.
No. One of the questions, not a question, but maybe it's for the other board members, you might explain the grandfathered rates and how that's where you're going to get a lot of the pushback.
So a few years ago, we went from, I think we're at $275 per unit. And we said, okay, our new rate is $4.25, but if you're here, we're going to keep you at $275 and increase you 2.5% a year. We had been at $275. We had two rates, $250 and $300, and we combined them into $275 and made them all the same. That was almost 12 years that we had not raised T-hanger rates. In those 12 years, our insurance cost quadrupled. Obviously, electricity goes up every year, water goes up every year, janitorial staff cleaning bathrooms increases every year. So we had significant costs, and we're about to spend $600,000 for half of the doors on the north side. The north side of every T-hanger in the 600s needs new doors. And we're going to start with 605, which is the newest but the worst, and replace those doors and then go down. At the same time, we're going to repaint all the superstructures to try and maintain and put gutters up, which we hope will extend the lives of the doors. Because right now, you guys know, on the north side of the building, you don't get any sun. The water condenses on the roof, drips down all day long, and there's a superstructure along the bottom of the door that keeps the door stable when it's open. and those have started to rust. It's superficial, it's not structural, but it's getting to the point where if we don't do something, it will become structural. We had a tenant say that he has to wear a hard hat when he opens his door because of all the rust falling on his head. I don't think it's that bad, but I've been out there, I've looked at them, they are in need of replacement, and we've looked at multiple options. The HydroSwing doors, HydroSwing is not in business anymore. I think the high-power doors that we've been using are more stable. Having all of that moment on that hinge scares me as an engineer, and the high-power doors sit on top of the structure, and they don't have any movement when they're at their open position. They're in a stable position. So we'll be replacing those, but like I said, and 600,000 is our estimate based on what we did on the 200 series when we replaced all of those. So this rate, and if we go to it, would still in the new 606 that we built. Like I said, we spent $3.2 million, which is $133,000 a unit. We took money out of the bank that was making $433 a month on that amount. So to pay us back and pay 3.9% that we're losing is $800 a month. I think, you know, if we normalize all the rents to $600 and we can do this over 2 years, if the board, we can at least start to do some of the maintenance that's required and not lose a lot of money. Like I said, in the last 20 years, we have lost about $20,000 a unit based on the ownership cost.
And one of the, ideas was if we keep T-hanger rates low, they're buying fuel. It's offsetting the difference, right? They should be at closer to $600 a month, right? So we can cover our costs and everything. But because they're buying a lot of fuel, then that kind of offsets that, not a big deal. But what we found out, a lot of the T-hanger tenants aren't flying like we had thought they were. So they're not pumping a lot of gas and kind of offsetting that difference in cost. So, if they're gonna have a hangar here, that's great. But I think that they do need to pay the fair share, and where it's really not a subsidy that the airport's providing.
And you do have, I don't know how many, maybe the inspection would tell us, you got a number of hangars that are actually housing aircraft projects. Guys are building airplanes. I don't know whether that's 10 or 15 hangars, and they're not buying any fuel.
They're not buying any fuel, and
they're paying in that.
we're, yes,
I know.
Mr. Hansick.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you look at the FAA guidelines, we're stretching that. But, we are an airport, and we encourage general aviation. Some of the tenants think we encouraged it way too much. The general aviation tenants have said we encouraged it way too much.
The airline's too much.
So I ran some numbers on that because we get a lot of that the airlines are causing the problems. Our percentage of air carrier traffic versus total traffic has dropped from 2020 at 13% to 2024 at 9%. GA traffic has increased significantly. GA traffic has gone from 61,000 operations in 2020 to 127,000. Our increase in traffic is in GA.
Which was by design.
Yeah.
We were told for years that
You're ignoring GA.
that we didn't do anything for GA. We built a beautiful facility. We keep adding to that facility in the GA Center, the apron there, more T-hangers. And that was the design, but that's one of the hottest topics at the tenant talks, and what actually brought tenant talks was the impetus for it was the traffic increase that we've seen over the last 2 years. 38% last year, over the previous year, was mostly GA traffic, whether it be flight schools or itinerant traffic. And the months that the flight schools are down, the itinerant traffic is picking up the slack there. So our overall total operations, the air carriers have gone way down. Military is less than 1%. That was another complaint that we had. So when you look at the numbers, it worked. And now some of the people who have been here for a long time that used to be able to get in their aircraft, get right out to the end of the runway and take off, are now having to wait 15, 20 minutes in line to take off. And so we've done a really good job of producing a great general aviation airport that has a small bit of commercial service at it.
But we have spent Air Center ramp, 50 by 50, 60 by 60s, the new 600, the new self-serve, moving the self-serve and taxiway Gulf to access the GA area, $33 million in 5 years.
Okay, here's a big question I have. Assume you go this way. How are you going to sell this? Because the guy that's renting the T-hanger or the 50 by 50 or 60 by 60, he doesn't care about that stuff. He's going to care about his rent going from $375 on the low end to $600. How are you going to sell it?
I think
that's got to be the.
I think we've made all these investments, right? We've built a beautiful
Yeah,
air
but
center
what I'm saying-
facility. We have a beautiful ramp. It has to be maintained. And if they want to continue to have these nice facilities, and like Ray said, the tenants and the board wanted more investment in GA. We did that. Well, now that we've built it, we've got to maintain it, and there's a cost to that. And a lot of that cost is, yes, higher rates, unfortunately. When we didn't have a big facility, a big air center, a big ramp, there wasn't a lot of cost to it. So the rents, they were what they were. They were very low. But now that you expand, you have to raise rates.
I think we as board members need to know what that story's going to be if we go.
I'm sitting here thinking, when this comes up, there's probably going to be a few tenants who are going to be coming here during public comment. I'm assuming these proposed prices are when new tenants are going to be signing a new lease, or when old leases are expiring.
When the leases expire.
All right,
So that's one of my suggestions is we implement this over a couple of years. You know, we could do from 450, you know, we could do half and half. So if you're at 452, we do 525 and then 600 on your following year lease. If you're at the lower rate, you know, we do half 1 year.
are all the leases generally the same for all the tenants, for the hangars?
What do you mean generally the
Well,
same?
are they, you know, they're multi-yeared contracts, or are they 12-month contracts?
Everything's 12 months.
12 a year.
Or a 12-month, all
Yeah.
right. And are there options to renew?
No.
It's just, so what happens after 12 months?
Obviously, they're the tenant in that hangar, they come back and renew. So, yeah, I guess you do have the option to renew.
All right, so.
But not at a specific rate.
You
I
know,
think they have an escalator in them now. under
They do have an
2.5%.
escalator in them now, because we had no escalator before, and they were just stagnant for, like I said, 12 years.
Well, I think it's our policy that the hangar rate increases, I think 3% annually is what we have in our
So
online.
that's currently in there.
It's not in the lease. It's just the rate adjusts annually by 3%. That's just
thought it's in the
standard,
lease.
right? So
2.5 is in.
I
2.5 is in
How
the
are we
lease.
increasing it if it's not in the lease?
Well, because the lease expires. Every year your lease expires.
So
and
then
you
you'll
sign a
come
new
to them and
lease.
say, you want to do a new lease.
Right.
You
The new
just
rate
calculate a
is-
new lease
Yeah.
with 3% increase.
Correct.
So we're approximately losing $20,000 per unit per year.
No, over 20 years.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, over 20 years.
Yeah.
So we're basically in the subsidized hangar business.
Subsidized housing, yes.
That's where I mean, that's where my mind goes. So, and
And-
then who's paying, or where does the money come for the $600,000, I think you mentioned, for the door replacements that were?
Well, we have that,
We have a
But
reserve.
that's
a
not
reserve that
coming
we've been.
from the rents
No.
that we're making from,
No.
so, Commissioner Haynes, my reply is, let's show them the numbers. I mean, if I'm renting a home and my rent goes from $452 a month to $600, and I say to my landlord, what gives? And he says, well, here's the numbers. I've been basically absorbing your costs and subsidizing your rent for a house that I own that I'm losing money on. And then if that doesn't, well, gosh, I've been here forever and I'm not gonna, I'm sorry, what's our waiting list on hangars right now?
It's about 80. It's gone down.
I'm
and-
just saying, it's not,
That's the point I'm trying to make. We
Because
gotta
you're
have
gonna
the
lose
story
people.
to support whatever
Yeah.
we're gonna do.
But if I'm the tenant, I'm gonna say you're a bad business person
Oh, yeah.
for,
You're
for
gonna have
charging
what,
low money.
I just,
When
I know we're an enterprise fund and we're not taxpayer, but that doesn't mean we're in the losing money business.
Well, I agree.
It doesn't make any sense to me. We should
got-
at the very, very minimum, be breaking even on everything we do.
Yeah, at a minimum.
And,
Hey.
sorry.
Well, I mean,
No, you're-
and that's, trust me, I struggle with this, and staff knows I struggle with this. I mean, I do not want to raise T-hanger rates. You know that. We sat here for years at low rates. But there has been a push to build more, and we have built more. We've built 10 60 by 60s, 9 50 by 50s, 24 T-hangers. The cost of the 9
50 by
50 by 50s, just the cost of the money is $2,000 a month. That's the cost that we're losing by not paying ourselves back, $2,000 a month.
So I think another thing that this would probably end up, what would happen afterwards is you're gonna see the people that are using it not as an aviation use. They may have an airplane, they may have a project that they're working on they've been working on for years. Those types of uses are probably gonna go away. You're gonna see actual aviation users coming in.
Do we still have a big
and
wait
flying.
list?
Yes.
88.
So we have about 80 to 90 people on the wait list. And I think what Ray's saying is true. And unfortunately, our average age in the T-hangers is 61 years old. We had a great tenant. It was very active in the Tenants Association that passed away a couple of years ago. But he had a hangar until the day he died. He hadn't flown a plane in 10 years. I think that's going to phase out, because I know my wife would not let me pay for a hangar if I wasn't flying a plane, especially if it went from $400 a month, $600 a month. And if you get pilots in there that are using the hangar, and we have a lot of really nice planes sitting on the ramp because we don't have hangar space, and those people are flying daily or weekly, we may actually offset the loss in money by selling fuel. So.
And of those 88, maybe, I don't know what number would be, but maybe 20 of them
20.
are on another
Well, so that's.
hangar list at a different airport, so you
Yeah,
may not have a true 88.
we're going through 4 to get to one that'll accept a hangar when it
4
comes
to
up.
1.
And I think that's probably going to settle down. We knew that Page Field was building, so I have the numbers, 81 hangars. Not all of those were new. Some were replacement from hurricane damage. Venice was building 8. Naples is building 30. So there were 131 new hangars built in Southwest Florida in the last 2 years, plus our 24. So add that to that. So I think when people lost their hangar in Venice and lost their hangar in Naples when Hurricane Ian came through, and Page, they put themselves on every list out there. And our list doubled. In about 6 months after the hurricane, our list went from 90 to 180. Well, now that we built 24 and we've had some turnover, it's dropped down to, like I said, 80 to 90 people.
I mean, we're basically damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. I agree with Rob that, we're gonna have to convince these people on why we're increasing it. But at the same time, I agree with TJ, you have to be sustainable. And you can't be operating at a loss. So we're gonna go to them and say, we're increasing your fuel, we're adding a security fee, we're adding this, we're increasing this, and we're gonna jack your rent up.
But the tenants aren't seeing a fuel increase.
Well, but
They're
Or
that's
security fee.
the perception, what you're saying.
I'm sorry, you know, whether it's consumer, but going from 452 to 600, that to me is okay. But this big one here at the bottom, you know, I mean, you're doubling it.
Well,
But
that,
we can't lose money.
that unit is costing us, just the cost of the money, $2,090 a month. I mean, we took that money out of the bank, and to pay ourselves back, plus the interest that we're losing, is over $2,000.
Now, see, there's an argument there. Do you put into the cost because you're not getting interest on that money? You put the money into a capital improvement rather than keeping the money in the bank and getting that $250 a month interest.
Well, so
You understand what I'm saying? Or maybe I'm not
It
explaining
is a
myself.
cost.
So the 60 by
It is a
60s,
Or a loss.
the 60 by 60 was $3,400,000.
Right.
That's $340,000 a unit. If you take that $340,000 and just take the interest that we were making on that money, is $1,000 a month, $1,105. So that's the lost interest. But to pay ourselves back over 20 years and recoup that interest is $2,000 a month. And like Jeff just said, we also have to put in
Depreciation.
a straight line depreciation over 20 years, which is another $1,000 a month.
I guess I personally have a problem putting in the cost, a loss of interest.
But it's still a cost of the
that's me,
money.
huh?
I mean,
You're not borrowing.
I'm okay with saying let's ignore the interest, then we still have to pay back the rate. That's $1,100 a month, plus the cost of ownership, which is, I've
Couple $100 a
averaged
month.
at $206 a month.
And we're not even talking about collecting
Profit.
enough to put away some for reserves.
That's, so the $206 a month covers, on a T-hanger, covers the replacement of the door every 20 years, replacement of hydraulic hoses every 5, the replacement of hydraulic motors, a little bit for lawn maintenance and painting stripes. And so that $200 a month does cover our reserves and our ownership cost.
So you mentioned several are, I'm going to call it, basically they're hobby shops or man caves or however you want to describe them. I mean, if you're the owner of a storage facility, and a lot of people will use their storage facilities for their place to go to do their woodworking or hobby shop or whatever, and the owner of that storage facility and his costs over a 20-year period or whatever, if your costs are X and you're only charging, and you're charging and you're losing, and you think you're going to lose money as the owner of a storage facility? So my point is again, if we show them the numbers, say, why would you want your airport to subsidize your hangar?
Well, I will tell you, and I've been looking into these personally, these RV storage buildings that they're building all over Taylor Road. They're monthly fees. I'm not even talking about the cost of the building, which is about $250,000, $300,000. You're paying $400 a month just for the association fee. That's to keep the gates, the cameras, and you still have to pay your own electricity.
And a lot of those are glorified hobby shops.
Yeah, we cover electricity. We cover water, we cover sewer, we maintain the bathrooms.
So I understand, and I know Commissioner Hansick, you've been, and you have a very close relationship with the GA community. And I'm not trying to hit anybody over the head, but our job, and correct me if I'm wrong, or at least the way I view it is, I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to do what is best for the health of our airport and what the long-term viability. And again, go to the grocery store, go to anywhere, build a house, right? The costs have gone up, and the cost of doing business goes along with that. And I'm sorry, but it's reality. And that's the world I live in. I'm sorry,
And what the staff has brought to us, that's what we pay them to do. That's,
And it's
and
been a
this
long
is
time
all
since
good.
you've done it,
This is
right?
all good stuff. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to defend anybody one way or another, but we need to understand what we're doing and how we're going to sell it. Jack?
Chairman, I just asked,
Yeah.
if I could say a few things. Most of you may know that in my day job, I'm a commercial real estate attorney. And if somebody came to me and said, I want to invest $340,000 in a commercial piece of real estate, I say, what kind of return do you want to have? And we say about 8% return, let's just say. Well, that comes at $2,266 a month. Just the 8% return on a $340,000 investment. That's not including the land, that's not including whatever other services that you provide, the security services or so forth, but that's just a triple net return on $340,000 is $2,200 a month.
Yeah, I've done the pro forma on all of these, so yeah, I ran all that, and, yeah, so the FAA tells us we should make between 8 and 12%.
Oh, yeah.
That's their rule. I'm just trying to make 4%, to cover.
You know, I think we're going to be going down this road. We just want to make sure we have a position paper that we can say, here it is, guys, like Jack just said, you know.
It is what it is.
Unfortunately.
And I'd look at doing it, maybe, the suggestion was maybe do it in stages over like 2 years or something like that. And
Do these numbers break us even,
No.
is what it is?
No.
This puts a little bit, so we're still underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the T-hangers should probably be closer to $850 a month.
So an
At
8%
8%.
return on the T-hangers is $889.
Yeah. The 60 by 60, there's not a lot of those available in the area to begin with. And if you call around to like Naples or I think that's the closest one that has one, they're right around $3,000 a month.
And that's how we show them. I mean, we
Yeah,
show them the numbers.
And that's a good point to argue and say, hey.
And they're going to say we're not in April.
Right.
Yeah, no, but you can say, you know, based on with Chad's numbers, he's saying it should be 889. Well, you're getting a bargain at 600.
Yeah.
You know.
And really,
you know
they're
what
going
I'm
to say
saying?
that you're not in Naples, and we're going to say, well, you can drive your hour down to Naples
You
and
know, we got
spend it
some
in
guys
regular
that-
fuel.
We got some guys that drive
Another
up
reason
here
some
from
of these other
Bonita
airports, like,
Springs.
I think Page Field, they just built a bunch of new hangars and they're around 600, 650 a month or something, but they got an 80% grant to fund that big project they did. We funded our hangars with our own money. There's no grant, so we don't have that offset, right? We're passing, we need to pass along the whole cost. They only need to pass along 20% of the
20%.
cost, so they can be cheaper.
And-
But they're
and
still higher than us. Yeah.
You know, I think the idea of funding T-hangers by the DOT, and when we built some of the 600s, we were getting 80% money from the DOT, was to make airports self-sufficient. We can't be self-sufficient if we're losing $20,000 a unit over 20 years. And those were the same units we got 80% money on. So I don't like this raising rates. You know I don't like raising rates. There are going to be people saying we're paying for the airlines. They're not. We don't make enough money here to even cover the cost of this unit. And we're still making $16 a passenger that flies into this airport on other fees. So if we want to continue GA service, we're going to have to collect money from the GA tenants. I'll tell you, we just met with American Airlines. They're very excited about coming to Punta Gorda because they're having some issues at other airports. They have planes, they have staff. When we said we had 120,000 GA operations a year, they turned off.
No, I've been down that road. I know why they're saying that.
So,
Did you tell them we build a building with jetways that they can go?
they're not as concerned about that anymore. I will
The
tell you,
cost of those things, yeah.
airport costs at this last conference were the #1 topic.
Jumpstart?
The Jumpstart. And when you look at our neighbors, Sarasota's very efficient, and they have built with cash, and they're not charging the airlines any more. They're not charging them any less, but look at RSW's big projects. Their rates are going to go sky high.
Yeah, well, they're over $1 billion.
$1 billion, and they haven't built anything yet.
Well,
We need to wrap this up. We have
Understand.
another ribbon cutting at noon, and we're already 10 minutes into it. So I would love to continue this individually with you guys, and we can have another workshop before our workshop if we want. Go to the next slide. We'll talk about tie-down rates. Again, we're looking at increasing these.
That's minimal stuff.
Yeah, it's not a lot. I will tell you, the cost of pavement is not even close to covering this. If you look at the square footage the plane takes up and the square footage cost of that pavement, nowhere close. And no airport can ever cover the cost of pavement. Thank God the FAA does fund a lot of that, and we were very successful at getting state grants to build that air center ramp. We had to say AC does not mean air carrier. AC means air center. So, next slide. More tie-down rates as we go through. Again, minimal increases, and we don't have a lot of large jets that tie down monthly. Next slide. Building lease rates for commercial and air center. We have a large list for the air center for people that want rates. Everybody tells us our rates are too low at $17.44. So we're going to increase that for new tenants to $25.
I will say that was another thing that came out of tenant talks. Several tenants said that the reason we have so much traffic here is because our rates on fuel and T-hangers are too low.
Now, that was 50% of the tenants.
It's the other
50%.
125 we got to worry about.
So this is the last slide, I believe. Nope, one more, two more.
Well, this one, no.
Yeah, these don't really affect anybody. We have an RV and trailer parking lot. I don't like the idea. I like the idea of having the service, but we were cheaper to park your RV here than it was to store your RV at the RV lot. This is to use when you fly out and fly back, not store your RV. So
You got to consider where we live,
yeah. So we're just getting these to
market.
I want to get it up to market so people aren't saying, hey, I can store my RV during the season for less at the airport than I do at the RV storage lot down the road. So, next.
What's our daily maximum for an auto, for a car parked in the long-term parking?
$24 in short-term, $11 in long-term, but we also, 12 in long-term, but
Weekly, there's a weekly.
after 6 days, the 7th day is free.
Yeah. RSW is like $60 for $5 days, I think.
We're very, actually us and RSW are the same.
Yeah, same rate.
Same rate right now. We're not really changing a lot here. This is badge fees, lost badge fees. The cost of badging, the materials, the personnel. You know, we're not increasing the cost of the badge as much as we're increasing the cost of losing your badge. Do we have to do it again?
But those fees have also, the cost of the card itself has gone up substantially over the last 4 years.
I think they were about 10 cents, and now they're closer to $1 per card.
And the ink to print the badge, and then the time to do that as well. Also, the background check that's involved, we have to pay for each one of those for the background check.
Yeah, so if you notice on our badges, we have, they're printed on paper that is then attached to it, but there's a hologram included in it, and it's all just part of the security to make sure you can't duplicate this outside. Just costs more money, and you know, most 90% of these charges go to the commercial tenants and the airlines because they're the ones paying for their. I think we have, how many badges do we have right now?
We fluctuate between 1,600 and 1,800 badges throughout the year. It depends in season, obviously.
And we renew these annually. So.
Okay, before we adjourn, any direction to the staff? I think the most controversial thing is the hangar rents.
I just want to clarify for the record, I have no qualms with GA whatsoever. I love our GA. I don't think it's too much to ask for it not to cost us money to have you. And so I just want to make sure that that's clear. So if I start getting emails and things like that, I love our GA, but I just want us to be at least
What's your home address?
at the surface of the water, not under it, so.
But any direction, do you want to look at Harrison has recommended maybe a 2-year integration program? Do you want them to go that way in the budget process, or do you just want to go for the full 9 yards? It doesn't matter to, we just got to have this data and the facts.
Well, obviously, this is now out to the public, right? So we get some feedback, and then you guys come back to us with a suggestion,
Yeah, why don't we, at our next board meeting, because we can't do anything now, we can schedule another workshop prior to the workshop.
Like a pre-budget
Yeah.
meeting, or just...
Yeah, and we can go over this one more time, because you're going to get feedback, I'm going to get feedback, Ray's going to get feedback.
So, James, I have 2 questions.
Certainly.
I know I've been here now about 7 or 8 months, but what does SIDA stand for?
Security Identification Display Area.
Okay.
Those badges require both a threat assessment and a CHRC, criminal history records check. Sorry, I'm using acronyms again.
All right. And with all these increases, are we at the point of potentially breaking even?
On the costs?
On,
Not really. I mean, these are all, all of this, the badging especially, is,
I mean, of all the slides we've seen, we're
Yeah.
potentially proposing to increase everything. Is it at least going to try to get us to the point of breaking even?
well, I mean, you saw today, we're making money.
Yeah.
We're making money, and this is just part of doing business.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose a lot of, I mean, we have 2 full-time people doing badging, plus a badging manager who also does our SMS and our other security stuff. But, running now a large commercial airport, we're increasing staff, we're increasing materials, we're increasing equipment. We're just trying to start getting, this thing. This is very much in line with every other airport around us. This is, I can't say we'll ever make money on badging. But, we're just trying to get more
Yeah,
consistent
but
with other
and I
airports.
agree with TJ, these proposals, not just with the badges that's sitting up here, are just the small price of doing business that consumers are going to have to absorb the cost on.
Yeah.
I mean, as an airport, we're making money, but other aspects of the airport is subsidizing this one area that,
Yeah.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're also in negotiations with Allegiant, and they're going to, are they listening? Their rates are going to go up significantly, not significantly to the point of being close to everyone else around us, but to them, it's going to be significant. Pie just went from $2 to $4, and I can tell you Allegiant is losing their minds over it. Yeah, and they're going straight to board members, so.
You got to be careful. It's a delicate balance.
It is a delicate balance, and we're close to 30 cents. We're trying to at least cover the cost of the things that weren't in the budget when we started with 30 cents 10 years ago. And we're making a very pointed presentation to them to say, this is what we've covered.
Very similar to this.
They're very similar to this, and we're going to have a very difficult discussion with them in a month. So,
The 30 cents, that's
per plane passenger.
per in plane.
Yeah,
And Pie is charging what?
$4. They're going from 2 to 4.
Going from 2 to 4, and we're at 30 cents.
But you have to, and that would be a good subject for a workshop.
Yeah, the next-
Individually, the difference on your business philosophy.
We have a very different business model. We're making a lot more money on ancillary revenues than they are. And we also don't have a share. So Sarasota shares 50% of their ancillary revenues with the airlines. So they charge $6 in enplanement, but then they share 50% of their rental cars. we don't share. We collect all of it. So at the end of the day, and I've done the side-by-side comparison, we're making more money per plane passenger, even though we're not charging the airline. So.
Yeah, this is where you get involved in, this balance between, GA's not even breaking even, but you got all this other stuff that contributes.
And I'd like to see that.
And
Please show me the, ancillary,
It's kind of a single cash.
if there's something that we're not considering.
So
that
that's.
is- I want to know about it. Based on what you're presenting to me and what you're telling me, it's not adding up. But if there's some other side way of, the other
well,
indirect ways that we're benefiting and doing, and kind of evens itself out, by all means, let's consider it.
I think what we're trying to do is make the Air Center more of a self-sustaining business. Because that is it, right? As James talked about earlier today, if we, farm that out, they would be charging tenants $800, $900 a month for a hangar. We're not doing that because we do have some of these other things to offset it, but we want it to be more sustainable, more profitable on its own.
Absolutely.
And then if the rest of the register, as you say, has to give a little bit more, I think we want to start giving less, subsidizing less of it, and actually charge the value that it should be charged.
So about 5 years ago, we put out an RFP to build new T-hangars. Not us, private entity to build new T-hangars. Not a single person bid on it, because they know, they have investors. If it costs $133,000 a unit, they got to charge $800 a unit, and we're charging $400 a unit. They can't compete with us, and so we got no interest, and that's the reason we went and built our own to help the tenants get a place to live.
We'll just blame it all on our custom home builders.
Custom home builders that are raising all the rates. Trust me.
Cost this, try to make that, it's.
All right, guys, I hate to wrap this up, but we do have people waiting for us over at the maintenance.
Unfortunately, I'm